original Metroid Prime is still fantastic, no doubt about that. Whether you're playing it on Gamecube, or on Wii with widescreen support and IR pointer controls, or on Switch with the Remastered edition, it's always high quality. Really though, once you've played Remastered, it is hard to go back, but not impossible. It takes some getting used to, but honestly the original still slaps. So, what makes Metroid Prime so damn appealing? Why is it so beloved? Don't people know that this game actually has its flaws? Like its dated lock-on aiming system or its backtracking-heavy design? How about its slow drip of boss fights and frequently used repetitive enemies? None of these issues seem to matter though, and it's apparent from published criticism that it didn't matter much at the time of original release either. This is because Metroid Prime distinguishes itself through incredible atmosphere, music, and sound design that are candy for the ears. Its subtle, lore-driven storytelling mechanics, and its brilliant sense of discovery and environment. And those so-called problems I listed aren't really problems insofar as the taste of the player goes. If you like Metroid already, you probably don't mind re-exploring a few areas, especially when you've got new tools to use to explore even deeper where you couldn't before. And that lock-on system? Honestly, I think it still works fine, and especially with Remastered's new dual analog control scheme, I still end up relying heavily on the targeting. However, yes, the original aiming is a bit rough at times. While the Metroid games before Prime had a lot of atmosphere and depth to them, Prime was the game that showed it all off in a new, more grandiose and cinematic way, all while still riding firmly on the show don't tell train of quality. Despite the Gamecube not even selling all that well, Prime quickly became a significant hit for the console and franchise overall, selling 2.8 million units, leading to 2 sequels being made for it, with a 4th on its way as of time of recording. It'll eventually release, right? Please. Please. For a while before Metroid Dread, Prime 1 was the highest selling game in the franchise, beating out Prime 3, which was released on a more successful console. Ultimately, this made Retro Studios' Metroid Prime become quite the watershed moment for the franchise, and it would lead to a strong style that many would later try to imitate. Many players know Metroid exclusively as a first-person shooting franchise, despite it mostly being a 2D side-scrolling adventure game series. That's how impactful Prime was. So all that being said, what makes Metroid Prime so successful? Perhaps it was the fact that it's a first-person shooting-based adventure game, which were, at time of initial release, only gaining in massive popularity as a genre. Or perhaps it's the crazy attention to detail displayed in the game, as it was immediately known for how good it looked, boasting the GameCube's robust hardware power. In reality, Prime is the culmination of many factors, all at once to create one of the most sublime gaming experiences, one that simply enchants all those who play it all the way through. Let's start where the game begins. Samus's journey in Prime takes place after Metroid 1, with a focus on scanning to find out more about the story. However, the main plot is that there's this planet called Talon 4 that Samus gets called to via a distress beacon. Talon 4 had Chozo on it doing experiments, and now has space pirates on it doing even crazier, worse experiments. Chozo, of course, being the alien species that raised Samus after the evil space pirate Ridley ate her parents, and the same Chozo that gave her the iconic power suit. Smart bird people in space. Space pirates on Talon 4 are combining DNA of creatures to themselves, all with this mysterious substance dubbed as Phazon. Phazon is actually hugely corruptible and pretty bad overall, so the Chozo took a great many measures to see that it doesn't spread throughout the galaxy. And like many goals of the Chozo, in terms of not letting something spread throughout the galaxy, this one didn't pan out. There's artifacts to collect and many power-ups to acquire, all to eventually see through Samus's destiny as the entrusted one. The story is bare bones, but that's perfect for the game, allowing the lore to be optional and the game's mechanics and design to shine through. Attempting to see how there was once sentient life in the areas you explore is almost chilling, knowing that there was once way more activity. But there was, of course, a big meteor, Metroid Prime, and a whole bunch of Phazon to worry about that, well, cleared the hallways for Samus to explore. In the efforts to stop the villainous pirates, Samus has to get many of her powers back, which had been messed with in the opening section of the game, and this all leads to an assault of discovery, and a literal assault on the space pirates' nefarious plans. There's creepy and deadly bosses to take on, along with a great many organisms and objects to scan. Some of these bosses actually pose deadly challenges to Samus, leading to a lot of problem solving being necessary from the player. Usually, when there's a new gameplay mechanic introduced, you'll need to use it to kill a particular enemy, or break through a particular barrier. The gameplay is almost always connected to the environment in meaningful ways. There's secrets to find, as usual, and puzzles everywhere to be solved before Samus can find new equipment and upgrades to that said equipment. The main story ends up being about finding all of the Chozo artifacts to finally put an end to Metroid Prime, which you almost do. Everything up until that point is tense, spooky, and full of subtext. In general, Metroid Prime is about how no species, no matter how sentient or wise, should have too much power. Phazon, as cool as it is way too dangerous, and the naivety of both Chozo and space pirates for thinking they could properly control it is what ultimately leads to their downfall. Well, that and all the missiles I pour into the space pirates' faces. Prime 1 through 3 takes place after Metroid 1, as I said before, but before Metroid 2. Thus, there's Metroids around to be cautious of, beyond just the last big boss of the game. Anytime especially deadly enemies show up, the music gets intense and the stakes feel noticeably higher than normal. There's times where this game gets genuinely freaky without any need for jump scares or grotesque imagery. While I wouldn't really consider it a horror game, it does evoke some dark elements, definitely making for an atmospheric thriller if anything. The tension of knowing that if you die here, you have to go back to the most recent save is very present, especially in more challenging rooms. And ultimately, it's that very same sense of dread and foreboding doom that has always been present in the franchise. It's kind of a staple of the series, really. Truly though, the real feat of the game still remains its overall construction. Turning Metroid into 3D and to a first-person shooter no less, and making it one of the best Metroid games while you're doing it, it's all crazy impressive of Retro Studios. One can only hope that Metroid Prime 2 and 3 get the remaster treatment too, as these games are masterpieces as well, just waiting to be replayed and played for the first time by a new generation of players. And overall, Metroid Prime, it's just a classic. You've got to do yourself a favor and at least try to play it. Sure, there's gonna be some times where you might feel lost, but you know, look up a walkthrough or just really try to boil down and figure it out because it's not impossible. Anyone can play the game, especially if they just take the time to look around, check everything, scan everything, use all your abilities, because trust me, the path forward, while it might seem murky, it's there if you just seek it out.